Dado blades are used on the table saw, and as I showed you before with the table saw and on the other video, I always like to clean the surface because when you're sliding your wood across this, if it hangs up at all, it can cause the wood to bind, and anything you can do to make sure you're safer. I just put this WD-40 on here. This won't hurt your wood at all. WD-40 is wonderful stuff. It's even edible. It's made from some kind of fish.
I thought if you ate that, you
get poisoned.
No, this is not poisonous. This is made out of a fish oil.
It's really nasty.
It's a natural substance. You can spray this on food, and it will give your food that good taste.
It says like keep out of mouth.
Reach of children.
It says keep out of reach of children. As children will spray in their eyes and it will still hurt. The table saw. This is the regular blade on here. Now the one thing I want you to remember is before you ever change a blade on a saw, first thing I'm going to do is go. That blade's got power on it. I'm not going to change a blade with a saw that has power to it. Because if you do that, what happens is that you have to have great faith in a switch. I have seen switches fail before and not work. They break. I've had them where they stick on, where they stick off. I don't want to take any chances, so I'm going to go over to the circuit breaker and I'm going to shut the power on. After you shut the power off, if you're doing it at home and you have a small table saw, you can just unplug it. But if you're working on one that's connected directly to power, you need to shut off the circuit breaker. I always come over then and press the power button to make sure the power's off. Because I don't want that thing cutting on. I don't want to be known as Mr. Stubbs. It has a cover plate on here. I can remove this cover plate. Then I'm going to use this wrench here, and by putting this in here.
What if it turned on and cut off your hand?
If it turned on, I wouldn't be happy, which is the reason I cut the circuit breaker off.
But what if the circuit breaker turns on?
The circuit breaker won't.
What do you want us to do in a situation like that your hand got cut off?
If your hand gets cut off, you go see one of those surgeons and get one of them new fancy biotech hands.
Have you ever got your hand cut off by friends that are...
With the table saw, the part that the blade goes on is called the arbor. It has an arbor nut on there. You need to remember that an arbor nut is always reverse threaded, and that means that it's no more lefty-loosey, righty-tighty, it's the opposite. The arbor nut. If you drop the arbor nut, taking it on and off, it falls down in there, and that's full of sawdust. And there's lots of sawdust.
Can't have your face in the thing. No, it's not anybody's face.
It's all turned on right there.
It's all turned on right now, nothing will happen.
You can't see anybody's face.
Okay. The blade. This is the blade that's on there. This is about a $100 blade. This has carbide tips. I was talking before about the carbide tips, and the carbide tips are these little pieces that they're welded onto the edge of the blade. And I also told you with the blade that the tips of it go out like this, which allows the kerf to pass through the wood. What I don't want to do is ever set a blade down on something that is, don't ever set it down on a hard surface, because then your blade is touching on these carbide tips, and if you chip them, it pretty much ruins the blade. I have a little piece of carpet here. The other thing you can do is set them on a piece of wood. Next I have my dado set. And a dado set is made up of two blades, two round blades, and what they do is you put this on here, you put the blade on, and then we use these chippers. And these little chippers, they also have carbide tips on here, and they fit over the arbor. Now to get it to the exact space I need, what I did was I cut little spacers here just on a paper. You wouldn't think that this paper would make that much difference, but it really does. That's how you finally adjust it. As I'm putting the chippers on here, these middle blades are called chippers. This is one type of dado set. This is there's not 17.
You couldn't see the paper inside the video, Mr. Mahoney.
Pardon?
You can see the paper.
You can see it?
Yeah, now you can.
Okay.
You had it up.
The blade, and then I put the final blade on. as I align these, I want to make sure that the...
How do you get it to stick?
How do we get it to stick?
Yeah, look, it's like sticking. How do you do that?
It has a tightening thing. Okay, it's these chipper blades cannot rest up against the edge of the carbide tip blades here. If these touch together, it forces the blade apart. So I'm going to make sure that these chippers are aligned. They can be anywhere in here. It doesn't have to be, they don't even have to be next to each other or anything like that. This thing spins pretty fast, so that. Then I'm going to take my arbor nut. I can't use the washer on it because of the width of it. Putting this arbor nut on is probably the hardest part, because if I drop it down in the sawdust, now you're not going to be happy. I know, with the SOL testing coming up, SOL is on all of your minds. Okay. Once I get that on, I'm going to tighten this. And remember, this tightens in the opposite direction, so I'm going to turn this left to tighten it. Now, I don't really need to put a tremendous amount of torque on this to tighten it. I'll sometimes put this in here and give it a little push. The reason I do that, the blade is cross-threaded. I mean, not cross-threaded, it's reverse-threaded, so that when the thing starts up, it's going to automatically tighten it. If the nut was loose and they used a regular thread, the natural tendency would be for it to loosen. Obviously, this piece isn't going to work on here, this cover plate, so I'm going to use this wider one that fits on here. Then I'll come over here, I'm going to adjust my dado blade up, and I'm going to use this for a pattern to set the depth. I'll move my fence out of the way here. I'm going to put this right over it, and then I'll get off to the side here, and I'll turn it up so that I get just until it just starts to lift off, and then back it off. Okay? Now I have it where I want it. Okay. That's good. Now I'm going to move the fence over. I am going to use this as a pattern so that I get it in the exact same position. All of your bench tops, all of the bench tops on these need to be, the dados need to be cut in the exact same location, because the side pieces between here and here, if these are all different, everybody's side piece is going to be different, and it would be really difficult to get it to fit right. I'm going to ease this over to right where I want it. Then I should be good to go.
Want me to stop filming? It's still filming.
That's okay.
Okay.
Next, as is the rule with this, always wear safety glasses. I got these new high-tech safety glasses that look pretty cool. All right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how we're going to push the dado blades through here. I turn the power back on. I got everything locked. Before I start, I'm just going to check my fence, make sure everything's clean. I'm going to use this push block to push it through. Another good idea, if you're wearing long sleeves, if you got long hair, bling chains, anything like that that's going to hang down, you want them out of the way because you don't want to catch. As I push this through,
Are we going to get to use that?
go over there. As I push this through, I'm going to use this push block. I want to center the push block so that it's going to be directly over the wood. I don't want it up against the fence. I don't want it out here. I don't want it back here. I want it up here. It's got to be right in the center, a little bit off the fence. Look what this is. As you push it through, you're going to push it through. It's going to cut the channel. Once it emerges, I want you to lift your hand up, out of the way. I'll bring the wood around. I'll spin it around. I'll put it back on there, and I will cut the other. And we'll cut the other dado. Here's how this works. Turn on, right here. Use this hand just to hold it. that's dado cutting.
Are you going to cut ours today?